Hello everybody, and welcome to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and I'm sorry for the protracted absence lately, but yeah, I've been going through some technical issues with the battle report. In fact, I've filmed this one like 3 or 4 times already, and on top of it, I just had a sense of ennui in general due to the lack of interest in this channel, but I took some time off and I am ready to go again. So this week we have Elves versus the Herd. The points played was 2,000 and the scenario was Pillage. So first off, we have my opponent's army, which opens with 2 hordes of Guardian Brutes, one of whom has the Brew of Haste and the other the Potion of the Caterpillar. Then we have a horde of Lycans with Brew of Strength, 3 troops of Beast Pack, a horde of Stampede with Brew of Sharpness, a Great Chieftain on Tribal Chariot with Blade of Slashing and Bow, 2 Shamans, one of whom has Heal 5 and Shroud of the Saint, so Heal 8. The other has Ore of Heroism 2, Critter's Call 8, and this is a bit of a mistake. That should be Banner the Griffin, not Heal 5. When I originally did this battle report, I couldn't remember what the item was, but I do now, so yeah, that's Banner the Griffin. And finally, we have a Chimera with Wings. My thoughts on this list are that it's pretty good. It's about as good as I think Herd can get in version 2. I'm sure in version 3 they will get quite ridiculous, but right now they're kind of just weaker ogres, in my opinion. They have great heal, but I mean they're just 15-17 units, or 15-18 in the case of brutes, that run into you, and they don't really have the hordes to do it. You can bring tribal warriors, you can bring those things, but they're just not really all that strong, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that this is about as good as it gets. It has all the hallmarks, the beast packs, the guardian birds, a stampede at least, and the shamans, and it involves one of my favorite units that is criminally underused in Herd, the Great Chieftain on Tribal Chariot. With that bow and nimble, it's just a great unit. Moving forward, we have my elf army, which is 2 hordes of kindred archers, one of whom has the heart-seeking chant, 2 regiments of 4 shamblers, a horde of draken riders with chant of hate, a regiment of war chariots, an ASB with diadem of dragonkind and a mount, an elven mage with alchemist curse 10 and a mount, 2 elven princes, both of whom are mounted and have saber-toothed pussycats, Madriga the elf, and a tree herder with blizzard 2. This is obviously just a change up from my 1950 list that had Nyx before. You can't really replace Nyx. You could bring the Windborn or Windbreeze? Silver, whatever they are, the Windblast Elven Cav that does damage. Those are really good, but in the current meta of version 2, I wouldn't bring them. There's too much Blizzard and ASBs running around with Diadem. They just die too easily. So instead, I brought Madriga the Elf, who is a very interesting piece. She's essentially a bolt thrower that doesn't suck. Bolt throwers are okay. I shouldn't say that they suck entirely, but they're 100 points for not being able to pivot and shoot, which is fine, but it's just a little overpriced in the elf army compared to the rest of the internal balance. Madriga the Elf does a very similar move in that she has piercing 2, she always gets 3 shots, hitting on a 3 with elite and vicious, and then has her trick shot for the ignore cover d6 hits once per game. On top of that, she's melee 3+, she has Vanguard, she's an individual, she's just so much better than a bolt thrower, it's not even funny, and she's only 10 points more. So I put her in the list. I think a lot of players would probably swap the tree herder out for some sort of dragon, but honestly, as I've been playing elves, I really like just having the tree herder. If you're gonna run double hordes of kindred archers, it's nice to have a def 6 monster that can stick around them if you want, and on top of it, I don't think the Elf 75 dragons are any good. I think they're okay. I shouldn't say that they're not any good. The Tidarian Lord and the Mystic Dragon are decent, but the rest of the 75s all have 12 attacks, or the vast majority of them, 12 to 13 attacks, and the Elves are still stuck at 10. So, and they're not fearless. I'm just not feeling it. So hopefully in V3 we'll see some serious changes. I just saw the preview for the Northern Alliance today, and that King on Chimera, if an elf dragon's anything like that, yikes. So anyway, let's move forward into the game. Here we see the table. Starting on the right, we have a height 2 hill with a height 1 obstacle attached to it. Right above that, we have a height 0 graveyard. It's height 0, not height flat, so it does grant cover to certain things. Then we have a height 1 obstacle attached to another height 2 hill. Off to the left here, we have a height 6 forest. Right below that, we have another height 0 graveyard, To the left of that, we have a height 2 hill. And then to the right of that, we have a height 4 impassable. I think it's height 4. Then we have another height 6 forest right here. And right above it, another height 4 obstacle. And in this game, this obstacle, the whole base is height 4. Verisimilitude has a point, but, you know, just cool it. So anyway, on to the scenario. Pillage is a pretty simple one. You get D3 plus 4 objectives that you and your opponent alternate placing on the battlefield. We rolled a 1 for the D3, so we have 5 objectives. And my opponent and I did the same thing that we did in our game in the Emerald Dragon GT, where we just took the 5 objectives and sort of threw them at the table and adjusted them to make sure that they were 12 away from each other. So my opponent won the roll-off and chose to be on this side because we've got 1, 2, 3 objectives easily reachable by him. So I think that's a smart move because the other objectives are right here under one of my elf hordes. And then over here to the right, we have the 5th objective. So if I were on his side of the board, I would have easy access to these 3 objectives, or at least these 2 objectives, and then I can just fly out and grab one if I want, and my opponent has to push forward because they're herd. And in that case, might as well go for mine, right? So anyway, I think that was a prudent maneuver, and let's get into the deployment itself. So up here on the left, we have the Horde of Lycans with Brew of Strength. Next to them, we have the Banner of the Griffin, obviously Banner of the Griffin right there. Banner of the Griffin, Shaman with Aura of Heroism and Critter's Call. To the right of that, we have the first horde of brutes. These have the Brew of Sharpness, the Minotaurs, keep that in mind. Then behind them, the first Beast Pack. Then to the right of that, we have the Horde of Stampede with Brew of Sharpness. Did I just say that they had... Those brutes have Brew of Haste, in case I said Brew of Sharpness. And behind them, we have the second Shaman with Heal 8, and behind them, the second Beast Pack. Finally, off here to the right, we have the Walruses, who are the second horde of brutes with Pathfinder suspiciously behind a wall. And then behind them is the third and final Beast Pack. Off here on the right flank is a blurry picture of the Chimera, and then of course the Chieftain on Chariot with Blade of Slashing and a bow. So facing off against these two are my Draken Riders with Chant of Hate, and then the ASB is behind them. You can sort of see the base peeking out right there, but that is my ASB back there with the Gatling gun. So let's go to the right of that. We have my Regiment of War Chariots, then we have the Horde of Archers who are naked. Then to the right of that, we have the Alchemist Curse Wizard, the Heart-Seeking Chant Archers with both the princes behind them, and behind this house somewhere is Madriga the Elf. She's a little picture shy, didn't show up, and off here to the right of that, or I guess in front of her, we have both the Shamblers and the Tree Herder, all of whom have vanguarded forward. I hadn't vanguarded Madriga yet because I had forgotten to before I took this picture, but don't worry, she does vanguard forward. Let's get into the game itself with turn 1. Turn 1 goes to the herd. Here we see Madriga just hiding right there. So turn 1 goes to the herd. Off here on the left, my opponent takes their Lycans and rolls forward, making sure that one of my regiments of Shamblers is within charge range of them. I find this a little weird, and I'll get to that a little later in the turn. We have the Shaman here with Critter's Call moving forward to get Critter's Call onto my Horde of Piercing Archers, a prudent call. So originally it was right here behind the forest, the idea that my opponent, once I put down these archers, decided to make sure they were within 30 of my archers just to get the critters turn 1. This horde of brutes with the Brew of Haste wanted to roll pretty far forward to get into charge range of both a Tree Herder and a unit of Shamblers, but in the end decides not to because there's a very thin line of sight gap here to see my archers, and they didn't want to obscure it. So that's the plan there, and this is what I mean by the Lycans. Originally this unit was farther forward, and that made it so I had a split decision between what the Shamblers do. Do they go at the Lycans or do they go at the brutes? Now, in my mind, they're never going to go for the Lycans. The Lycans are nimble, can just run around them, and because of where the Lycans are, I can actually back up with my Tree Herder and Shamblers out of their charge range. So I probably would have pushed a bit more aggressively because they still could have kept out of the charge range of these two and only made it one and made it so I couldn't back away out of the charge. So just a small quibble by me. We've got the Stampede rolling up onto the hill here. They are just barely off the hill because Stampede are height 3, so they can see over it anyway. And this will just grant them cover against shooting, which is always a smart move. The walruses move forward. The dogs move kind of forward. They're just hiding behind their units. Then off here on the right, we have the Chimera and the Chieftain. I'm not sure about the positioning here. First off, the Chimera could have been farther forward, right? Like right on the edge of this graveyard, because it does grant it cover because it's fully within or 50% within, and then it just wants to have a bit of terrain right in front of it because it could be out of charge range just barely of the chariots here because they are only speed 8 in cock 19 and probably within charge range of the Drakons. But if the Drakons charge in, they're going to be hindered. So 18 attacks on 4s and 4s because I lose my Thunderous with Elite and Vicious. That's not the best numbers there. So I probably would have pushed forward a little bit just to force the Drakons as they're my only combat unit forward. There is an issue as well with the Chieftain, which I will discuss on my turn. And in my opponent's shooting, so first off, we've got the Critter's Call. My opponent only hits with 2 shots, one, maybe even just 1, but does land the 1 wound, the prerequisite 1 wound onto my Archer Horde and gets the Disorder. And then the Chieftain on Chariot with the bow fires 7 shots, does 3 wounds to my Chariots, and wavers them on a 10. So a little unfortunate for me there, but let's see what the Elves can do with their turn 1. So Elven turn 1, starting on the left, you can see that the Shamblers that were here charge into the Brutes. This is just to jam up the herd line. That's basically what Shamblers do. So the other 2 back up, the Shamblers and the Tree Herder back up out of the charge range of the Lycans, as I said they would. Madriga also backs up. I originally wanted her on the hill right here, but I couldn't quite get it, so she was out of charge range of the Lycans and in a place I liked. So I just put her over here. She has clear line of sight onto both this Shaman and onto this Beast Pack within 24, so all I want to shoot at anyway. I don't really move these archers, they don't need to. And then we have both the princes rolling forward because without the Critter's Call, the only range attack my opponent has is on the Chieftain. So I'm not really afraid of it, although I guess the dogs could charge me, so I probably could have been a bit more careful with these princes, but I'm not, so I moved my wizard here a little bit, and the idea, I just inched forward that I'm still going to turn during the shooting phase and heal the chariots, and these ones don't move. And finally, off here on the right, I have my Draken Riders roll forward, and this is what I mean by this Chimera made a mistake, because if it had moved to the edge, the problem here is that the Draken Riders could come around its flank and get out of its line of sight. I still can't charge it, or if I do charge it, it's in the front. But here's the thing, is that I can already do that. So I have a perfect landing spot that I'm an inch away from the Chieftain, and I'm out of line of sight of the Chimera. So I've got a great landing spot there. The Chieftain does not have Pathfinder, so if it decides to charge my Draken Riders, it's now hitting on 4s because it'll clip the woods here, hitting on 4s and wounding on 3s because it loses 1 Thunderous as well. And that's just not great dice. Even with Blade of Slashing, you're only looking at 3 to 4 wounds maybe. So I'm not super afraid of that, and that's exactly what I want because the Drakons on the countercharge, on average, need like a 5 or a 6 twice to kill that Chieftain, and I'll take it. It is unfortunate that my chariots got wavered here because I wanted to get some pip damage up onto either the Chimera or onto the chariot itself, but it's not to be. So they just back up slightly out of the Chimera's charge range because there was, the Chimera wasn't horrifically placed. It was within charge range of these chariots, so, but not within charge range of my archers, which is interesting. So the chariots back up a little bit. And here we see the action shot, which is my Blizzard tree and Madriga the elf over here take aim into this shaman with the Critter's Call and the Aura of Heroism and the Baron of the Griffin, just all the toys. Need to get rid of that. So I hit with 1 Blizzard. I do, I think, 2 wounds, but then Madriga fires her trick shot, hits, rolls the number, it's 6, and I do 6 wounds there. So poof, at the end of my turn, that's one dead shaman. For those of you playing a lot of classic WoW, I'm sorry, but no Wind Fury. Yeah, so I got rid of this shaman, and then I do get another lucky bit, which is these archers here fire into the walruses, do 5 or 6 wounds, and then get a lucky waver for me. So either a 9 or a 10 against my opponent, and bam, they're wavered as well. So this chariot waver doesn't look as bad anymore. I have first blood and a waver. So let's see how the herd reacts in their turn 2. So turn 2 herd. First off on the left, we have the lichens just rolling around the flank here. They're no longer inspired, so they're a little bit more wary. They could have gone into the flank of the shamblers, but that probably would have, 1, it's overkill, and 2, it's not a great idea because the only thing that can really happen here, besides like just horrendous dice, is a double 1. So if my opponent gets a double 1 here, that's a flank charge from both the shamblers and the tree herder into the lichens, and that's dead lichens. No reason to do that, so my opponent just rolls around. They are just barely out of the charge range of my lichens and my tree herder. In third ed, they won't be due to the change to leader point. But anyway, my opponent does get the counter charge with the brutes here. My shamblers did like 2 wounds to him. Did not get the boxcar waver. Not that it would have mattered because they have fury. So they go into the front there. The Stampede goes into the flank, just making sure to get rid of my shamblers, and I think that is a smart move, as brutes are only 4+ to hit melee, and if Emerald Dragon showed us anything, shamblers will win the fight against a horde of brutes every time. So the Stampede go to the flank. This Beast Pack makes a good move, coming around in front of the Stampede for when they reform. They'll reform like so, won't end up on the hill, and then a Beast Pack will be directly in front of them to protect them from the elf bows. So pretty good move. We've got the walruses just staying still, no reason to go backwards, and then the dogs just staying behind them. Off here on the right, we have the Chieftain going into my Draken Riders with that actual charge. So on a 4+ thing I just talked about, probably netting like 2 to 4 wounds, I guess. And then we have the Chimera coming around into a flank. It is just barely out of my line of sight. It might not look like it here, but it is. And just going for that flank there in case the Draken Riders on their countercharge fail. So as for the shooting, there is none. In combat, we have the Stampede and the Minotaurs here killing off my shamblers pretty easily. Don't roll that double 1 and get rid of them. And then right here, the friggin' Chieftain hits with all 7 of its attacks on 4s. Does not use the Blade of Slashing, just natural 4s. And then wounds me 5 times on 3s. So woof, that is, it doesn't sound like a lot because it's only like 2 or 1 to 2 more wounds than the average, but that is a lot in terms of what happens next, because if I'm at 3 or 4 wounds facing off against a Chimera to the front, I don't care about that. Even to the flank, it's not that bad, but 5 wounds? I don't know. We'll see what the elves do in response in their turn too. So, here's the action shot. Very pretty models. My opponent has all these Mirsha Beastman models, so really cool. And here we go. That is the end of turn shot. You can see the Stampede reforming, as I said before, and we go into elf turn 2. So elf turn 2, first up on the left, I take a prince and go into the lichens. I'm not exactly sure what I was trying to do here. I know that I was, trying to hold them up a little bit but I know that they're also nimble, so they're just going to go around him. I probably could have moved these units a little bit to use that nimble better, but I didn't. So instead I just charged into him looking for a boxcar waver, I guess. So, meh. I move Madriga forward because she wants to get an actual shot onto either the Stampede, the Beast Pack, and I think because I'm on the hill, I can see the Shaman back here, so maybe go for a pip damage there. Then I take my Prince, move forward, and I'm just going to shoot into the dogs. Again, this is not the best place for this Prince. I was thinking I'd block up the walruses, but the walruses now just have the ability to charge and move forward. I'm not blocking the Stampede at all. I guess I'm blocking the Stampede from charging these archers, but if these archers are in range, then why not just go there? So, not the best move. I probably should have the Prince right in front of me, but I don't. So, anyway, then I move forward with my Wizard, looking to get an Alchemist Curse onto the Stampede, just to get a little pip damage going, and the rest of the line does not move, except for, of course, the Draken Riders off here on the right, charging into the Chieftain, and my ASB coming around the flank of the Chimera, just going for a cheeky Gatling gun waver, or kill. With all my shooting, I decided to take my archers, both the archers, the chariots, and the wizard, and it's all into the stampede this turn, right? Oh, I do throw my cat here first. I do 8 wounds to the dogs, so they're on double ones. I don't have to worry about that. And then everything else goes into the stampede here. I don't do quite enough damage to put them on double ones, so Madriga has to help out and gets them there along with my blizzard, which just misses both of its shots this turn. So we've got the stampede on not quite double ones, but they're double ones to waver, so a 4 to kill. And let's see how it goes. Here's the action shot of combat, and boom, first off, we double won the dogs. That is really bad. These dogs getting double won means that I'm gonna lose my archers for another turn of shooting. So in the first 3 turns, I will have shot once. Yikes. And over here, at least I do kill off the stampede, so I did the bare minimum of what I needed to do. Stampede are gone. Then on the left, I've got my prince. I do 1 or 2 wounds to the Lycans. I don't boxcar them, so they'll be able to charge whatever they want. And off here on the right, yeah, so my Draken Riders go into that chieftain. I do my 10 wounds, which is about average. I need a 6 to kill. I roll a 6, and then I re-roll it, and I roll a 3. So I don't even waver it. That is about as bad as it gets. Because now I might have been able to tank a Chimera charge. I mean, it's dice, but this is just too much for me to handle at 5 wounds already. So let's see what happens with turn 3 and the herd. So turn 3 herd, first off, on the left, you can see the Lycans going into Magicka. This is just poor placement by me. I should have just pulled back a little bit because I was probably just going to shoot at the Stampede anyway, and who cares about cover? Anyway, I could have done a lot of things that I didn't do, and instead I got charged. Thankfully, I did do one thing correctly, which is Magicka is slightly behind the Shamblers here. So when the Lycans go into me and hit or center up, they hit the edge of my base, so they will not get an overrun. Well, they could, but they'll overrun past my Shamblers, not into their flank especially. So yeah, at least there's that going. I got that going for me. In the front here, you can see the Brew of Haste guys just rolling forward a little bit. That's okay. We've got the dogs going into my archers. That is not okay. I do not like. And the walruses going into my prince. Again, just poor placement by me. We have the dogs here. I keep missing these, and I said before I've done this battle report about 3 or 4 times, and I forgot to mention this every time. But these dogs go into the tree herder just looking for 1 damage to turn off my blizzard, which seems fair, or my surge seems better. But yeah, going for the 1 damage there. And off here on the right, woof. So we've got the chieftain going to the front of the Drakens. We have the Chimera going into the flank. The Chimera did take 3 or 4 wounds from my Gatling gun, which is pretty good, but I did not manage to waver it. So that is very unfortunate. And then right here we have the dogs just rolling right in front of my archers. It might seem like a weird maneuver, but it's honestly just to block some line of sight. Well, I mean, it doesn't block line of sight, but it's granting cover to quite a few units over here from these archers, because these ones are going to be friggin' disordered again on my turn. So let's see. Oh, and then we have the wizard, the shaman back here last turn had moved over and healed the walruses for almost all their damage. This turn they go and heal these guys for the rest of their damage. So heal 8 is a hell of a drug. Let's see how it all plays out. First off, we have the action shot. I did in fact do 10 wounds, and you can see the 5 over here, and then the Chimera has 3 or 4 wounds back there. My opponent goes into me. The Chimera whiffs hard. It only manages like 4 wounds to me, 4 or 5, which is pretty bad. And I think I could have taken that, but because I didn't waver this guy or kill him, he goes in and again hits me 7 times, granted on a 3, and does get the Blade of Slashing reroll, but manages another 5 or 6 wounds or something like that, and gets me to double ones, which, boom. My opponent does not roll double ones, and I am killed off. I've lost one of my 2 real combat units, and I'm feeling that. But that's 2,000 points if you misplay a unit, or if you, in this case, I don't think I misplayed the Drakens. I just played them aggressively, and I lost them due to that. But over here in the center of the table, the dogs manage 3 wounds against my archers, so they're disordered again. These dogs manage 1 wound against my tree herder, and it's disordered, and Magicka dies horrifically to this pile of Yif. So yeah, let's see what the elves do with their turn 3. Elf turn 3. The Lycans here had reformed perfectly parallel to the edge of my Shamblers. It means that I could charge them, but it makes it so I can't do any weird surge shenanigans. Not that I could anyway. My opponent just rolled this combat first and didn't want to. Well, the dogs are pretty unlikely to land a wound on the tree herder, so did not want to open that possibility up to lose the lichens. So I go into the front with my Shamblers. My tree herder goes into these dogs. I move my wizard over here to the flank of the brutes. I'm going to go for the kill. I think they have 1 or 2 wounds on them right now, so I'm gonna go with all the kings shooting into the minotaurs this turn. I countercharge these dogs. Now here's my thinking. First off, I have this cat to throw at the shaman back here somewhere, but I have an alchemist curse, and then I have a horde of archers and a regiment of chariots. The regiment of chariots are going to grant cover to these minotaurs if they shoot at them. So, but this horde of archers can really lay down the damage, and if I kill off this horde of minotaurs, there's just not a whole lot my opponent can do, because the only thing that can charge these archers right here is the horde of minotaurs, and that's only if I either A, fail to kill the dogs, or B, who are at 8 wounds, so I only need to do 1. Either fail to kill the dogs, or when I fall back, if I only fall back 1 inch, I can get charged by these. But otherwise, I'm golden. So I fire off the Alchemist Curse first into them. I do not manage any... Oh, and I've got the ASB back here. Yeah, I'm going to be shooting into the Chieftain. That is priority numero uno for this right flank. So going to try to get him to double ones. If they can't do it, then the Chariots will do it. They can't do it, then this will happen, and I'll just eat the dog charge, because the Chimera is out of charge range right now. First off, I fire the Alchemist Curse into the Minotaurs, and I roll terribly. I think I only managed 2 or 3 wounds. Well, I guess that's not terribly, but that's actually pretty average. I needed a hot roll, though, to really go, well, to actuate on the amount of damage I can throw out. So I don't get it, and I go, well, that plan's done now. I then throw a cat at the wizard. Cat does what cat does, and it's 1 wound. So at least I'm rolling a check. The ASB here does get the chieftain to double ones on the waiver, and that's good enough for me. I managed 2 wounds. I then fire the chariots into the dogs. I'm not sure if this was a mistake, because I end up having to fire the archers at the dogs anyway. So it's a question of order of operations. The chariots are 8 shots on 4s with elite that then wound on 3s. Well, I guess that was the correct decision. All I need is a waiver on the dogs. So yeah, I fire the chariots off, I don't manage any wounds, and then I have to fire this horde of archers at the dogs because these minotaurs are not wounded enough, and the chieftain is already at double ones to waiver, so not worth shooting at. And yep, so I go into the dogs and I do 9 wounds there. So again, another double one, and let's see how it all turns out. First off, the action shot. We've got the 4 shamblers going into the lichens. The only real point here is I've learned a bit from my mistake, and as long as the tree herder doesn't decide to go forward d6 inches, I've protected myself from a lichen flank charge onto the tree herder or rear charge due to the placement of these shamblers. So even with their nimble, it can't be done. And here we go. First off, yeah. Oh, I only managed 7 wounds onto the dog, so I guess it was a double one to waiver them. And I do, in fact, double one them. Yeah, double one in these dogs. That is the worst. I recently heard on a Countercharge podcast the concept of if you can't eat a double one, then you don't deserve to win the game. I find that enormously reductive. And I ask you this question: what happens if you roll 2? What happens if you and your opponent roll double ones? Then who deserves to win the game? Anyway, moving forward, we have the end of turn shot. So first off, I get the double one onto these dogs. That's terrible. But on the right here, I do manage to get a waiver on the lichens. So I get them up to 5 wounds at least. And I roll that 10, get a waiver. That is super lucky, but they were kind of trapped anyway. The only thing they could charge was the shamblers. And they've got 18 attacks, so 12, 8-ish wounds. That's a 6 twice to kill the shamblers. So not too shabby, but not really necessary to get get this waiver, although I'll take it. And then I also roll pretty lucky with the 1 wound from my cat. I waiver the shaman, so I get a double 1 here, but I then pull out some serious luck here and here, and that's absolutely fine. I do manage to kill off these dogs with the tree herder. That's good. I managed to kill off the dogs with my archers, but again I get unlucky here. When I fall back 1, so I'm still in charge range of these minotaurs, meaning that for the first 4 turns I will have fired once, and that just leads me to believe I misplayed these archers, or misdeployed them. So anyway, off here on the right, the chieftain is dead with a 4 twice. That's good. And that's about it. So let's move into turn 4. So turn 4 for the herd. First up, the Lycans just sit still and regen. There's no reason to fall back. They want to be as close to the battle as possible, obviously. We have the Minotaurs going into my archers. Ugh, just a mess. I definitely should have backed these guys up when I had the chance on turn 1, but here we are on turn 4, getting charged again. Then we have the dogs here, the double 1 dogs. This is a big move. My opponent could have got a flank on these archers, could have charged these archers, and could have, could not charge the chariots, but instead goes to block up my tree herder, and I think that this is a very good move because I only have 4 wounds on these archers, and again, this is a 4+ to hit melee unit. If it flubs its dice, you do not want to have a tree herder get into your flank. Like, if this tree herder gets into the flank and the archers in the front, I'll probably just kill them off, especially as the shaman back here cannot heal this turn. And they have, I think, 5 wounds on them right now, because I did 2 or 3 here, and I think they already had like 2-ish wounds on them from the attempted heal before. So these guys probably die to that charge, or at least get messed up enough to be killed later. So yep, moving the doggos over here I think is a very smart choice. Then we have the walruses just waddling forward. They get into charge range of these archers, but these chariots are free. And then the shaman just sort of, turns around with his individual, goes over here, and then pivots back, right? Then we have the chimera. You can see its base poking out right there. But the chimera goes here, looking down the flank of my lines, and I'm going to have to do something about that. It only has 2 or 3 damage on it right now because of the shot from the Gatling gun, and I'm not, I probably can't kill it this turn, or even waver it, but I'll give it a try because all I have to shoot at is that. Falling off his horse because I put them in this container and it's been so hot up here. I mean, it's not super hot in Washington, it's just that Seattle doesn't really get warm, and so I had them in this container. It's pretty airtight and it's trapping a lot of moisture in it, and it actually made the glue come off because I'm a pretty light gluer in general. So yeah, I'll have to glue him back on. And anyway, let's take a look at the action shot. It is the archers versus the brutes. I actually really like this shot, although I didn't paint any of the models in it. So yeah, those brutes going in there. Let's see how they do. Bam, we've got another disordered, not even a waiver, because my opponent only manages 8 wounds onto my archers, and that's all right, I guess, but needing a 9 to get the waiver there, because I do not believe they have brutal, and they actually get the kill on the first roll, but the tree herder is exactly 6 inches away, gets the inspire onto them, and they are good to go with merely a disorder. And this is what I mean, like this tree herder into the flank here, these guys are at like 5 wounds, that's 14 attacks, and then 20 attacks from the archers. That's not pretty. So, interesting. And this is actually Elf turn 4. So on Elf turn 4, I take the Shamblers back into the Lycans. They have regened most of their wounds. I think they're down to 2 wounds now. I have my Tree Herder just decide to the dogs that are now absent. The tree herder does not charge them. I just sort of sit still because I want to get a blizzard opportunity onto the walruses or onto the shaman, depending on my needs. The dogs, I'm gonna go for a gamble here. They are at double 1s. I only need 1 wound, and I've got a prince right here ready to go. It will be a hindered charge, but 3 attacks on 4s and 2s. I'm betting that I can get 1 wound, and so that's all I need to get at least a waiver or a kill in that case. Yeah, that's a 3 to kill, and they're not inspired, so going for that. I again have my alchemist curse ready to go on the shaman or the walruses. It's probably going to be the walruses, and then my archers just sit here to stand and shoot essentially against the walruses while the chariots turn towards the threat of the chimera. The idea here is that the chariots only have 1 wound on them. They're a 13-15, so they're pretty hard to break. The walruses are too far away to charge them, and by pivoting in such a way as they did, they've made it so it's impossible to charge the archers in the flank. There's not enough room to land for the Chimera. So I'm going to go for the kill with the Gatling gun and then this 5+ archer hit, but even if I don't get it, I'm pretty confident that I can stick the landing here with my opponent on average getting around 4 wounds to the chariots, putting them at 5. That's a 10 to kill. I'll take those odds. In the shooting phase, I start off with my Alchemist Curse into the walruses. It does pretty poorly. I think I only manage 1 wound, if that. Then I fire off my archers. I do okay with the archers, but then the tree herder fires off, hits with both blizzard shots, boxcars them, so it's 12 hits and just mutilates these walruses, gets them up to 13 wounds because it's a double, or 12 or 13 wounds. It was a double 1 to waver either way, and I am super happy about that. Granted, I want to kill, but a double 1 waver is just about perfect. Then we have the archers here going into the brutes. We'll see what happens there in a second here. So we have the dogs die to my prince. I do get the double 1s onto the walruses. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not double 1s. It's a 3, which means that I had them at 11 wounds because I believe that they're a 15-18. So yes, I've got them at 11 wounds there, and I roll a 3. So these walruses are going to be able to go into these archers. Again, I'm not super worried. I did forget that they had Pathfinder, but still, a 4+ to hit, I wouldn't have moved anyway. So, but a 5+ to hit would have been whatever. I don't care about this charge at all, besides the fact that I can't shoot. So, we'll see about that. I do not get the waiver with the Gatling gun and the chariots. In fact, the Gatling gun sort of poo-poos this turn and manages a measly 1 wound. What is this? Normal average rolls? Get out of here. And we move into turn 5 for the herd. So turn 5 herd. This is the end of turn shot as well, as it was getting a little late. First off, we have the lichens. I managed to put them back at 5 damage. I don't roll actually, I think I put them at 6 damage, and I don't roll a 9. They then circumvent my shamblers to go into the prince. I did at least position my prince correctly so that there was no overrun possible into my wizard. But yeah, that's about it. It goes down pretty quickly, as you can see. Then we have the minotaurs here, who were at 7 wounds. So my archers did some damage there. Go into my archers again and poof them real quick. We have the walruses just coming around, going into the archers here, and managing 12 wounds, which is pretty sick, and they get the waiver, so woof, pretty bad there. And then the Chimera goes into the chariots, hits with all 7 attacks, because of course it does, and just wrecks them. So yeah, everything's sort of falling apart right here. And on top of it, this is actually a turn of elf, or a shot of elf turn 5, and I've cheated. So cheated poorly though. I cheated myself. First off, we've got the brutes turning back towards me, and these archers are wavered, and I decide to crab walk them, which you cannot do. You can only go backwards. So I crab walk towards the lichens, though, which is a terrible decision. If anything, I should have cheated this way, because the Chimera here is much more likely to die to the breath attack here, as it's at 7 wounds. It's at quite a few wounds, or at least get wavered. But instead I cheat the wrong way and go towards my doom. So this is the plan for this turn. I'm going to Gatling gun the Chimera, and then I'm going to go for the Alchemist Curse onto, not the walruses, onto the Minotaurs, because I also have a Blizzard, just barely, onto these Minotaurs as well, or I can also Blizzard these. And this actually did crab walk legally, so to dodge the charge from the lichens and still have a front charge from the brutes. I can probably tank one of them. I am at 1 wound. This is actually on the tree herder, but yeah, I can probably tank that charge, especially as they don't have Pathfinder and they're going to end up in the graveyard. So with my shooting, I send in the Alchemist Curse first. I do very well this turn, and then I believe I fire off the Blizzard as well into the Minotaurs and get 1 or 2 wounds, and then I do 1 or 2 wounds on the Chimera with my Gatling gun. So let's take a look at, here's the action shot of cheating with style, as in cheating to lose. And here's the end of turn shot. And things go pretty well. First off, I kill that Chimera. I definitely should have cheated that way if I was going to cheat. Secondly, if I hadn't have cheated, I wouldn't have been in charge range of these lichens. So yeah, the Lycans have a flank charge there, and I do manage to kill off the brutes. So things are looking pretty interesting right now. Getting a series of bad nerve checks is sort of keeping the herd in the game, but that's what makes it fun. So let's get in there with turn 6. So turn 6 for the herd, this is the end of turn shot as well because things were going a little fast and loose at this point. First off, we've got the Lycans. They go into the the flank of my archers, and you know, the archers are already at 12 wounds, so they pop them pretty easily. The walruses do not go into the archers, they just back up because they're going to go after this objective on turn 7 if there is one. The Lycans now control the objective that my elves moved onto or cheated towards, and things are looking a little dicey. The Lycans are at no damage now due to regen purely, and the walruses are down to a measly 7 due to a big heal from my opponent. So let's see what I can do with elf turn 6. So first off, we have the Shamblers here are not quite within range of this token. I do not have a picture of my elf turn, so I'm going to have to explain it through this one. So we have the Tree Herder. I'm going to easily walk onto that objective, and then we're tied because my opponent's on 1 and I'll be on 1. But I can go for the win, and then on a 4+, there's no turn 7 if I manage to get a decent surge here. I am 4 inches off from being within 3 of that objective, so with surge 8, I mean, there's no way I can over surge, and as long as I get 4, I will then win if there's no turn 7. So that's going to be the plan there. I then have my big alchemist curse going into the walrus along with my ASB who moves over here. So both of them are going to fire into the walruses who are severely injured and go for the kill there. And that's about it. So first off, let's talk about the surge. I do manage to get my tree herder up here, although it is exposing its rear to the Lycans. I'm really banking on there not being a turn 7, and I fail the surge. I only go forward 1 inch, so I'm not within range of this yet, and it's currently tied. And then with my alchemist curse plus my breath attack, I do significant damage to the walruses, but again, I put them on a 3 and I roll it. So another 3, and we roll for turn 7, and bam, there's definitely a turn 7. So turn 7, this is actually the end of the game as a whole, but let's talk about the herd turn. First off, we've got the Lycans who go into the rear of my tree herder and just obliterate it. They turn it straight into kindling, which they on average should. So yep, they kill them off, overrun a little bit. There's no way to overrun off of this token, so why not? So they grab that. And then the walruses, who are mysteriously missing, decided to turn as so and walk over here onto the objective. So my opponent's now at 2, and then the big heal goes off, and my opponent heals all 8 wounds off of the walruses. So they were at, I believe, 11 wounds, so they're back down to 3 on my turn, and I have to go big here or I lose. First off, my Shamblers walk over to the objective. Yes, go get it. You do it, boys. Then we have my Wizard plus the ASB ready to shoot into the walruses. The Wizard is positioned just in case the ASB goes nuts, to also be able to shoot at the other scoring unit, the Lycans, if possible. But it's not possible because I need the damage onto the walruses. I get them up to 11 wounds again, so a 3 to waver. 3 to waver and a, what is that, a 6 to kill? No, a 7 to kill. And I get the 7. I get it twice because they are inspired by this shaman. So yeah, that's really good, as now the game is an automatic tie, and there it is. My opponent ends up getting 100 more points of attrition, so it's just a perfect 10-10 tie. Very fun game. I misplayed a few things, like why did they not just move back a little bit? And then some of my individual placements, right? Like I put the prince too far forward, I think. But then I rolled some high and low dice, and my opponent rolled some high and not really low dice. I think pretty much all high dice, but it's such a bad matchup with herd versus elves that you kind of need it a little bit. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the battle report, and I hope this one uploads. And until next time, bye.